Hi everyone, thanks for checking out this video. I'm so sorry it's taken this long to get out. I have had a very busy past few months. Hello, Sam. Apparently my 19-month-old wants to be in the video. You want to say hi? Can you say hi? Hello. So, go play toys, okay? All right. So, as you can tell by this video, this is going to be my overview of labor and delivery of my second son and his first month up until I was. Okay, so the backstory is when I was 7.5 months pregnant, me and my husband went to my doctor's office for a normal checkup and an ultrasound appointment, and it was just going to be a normal day. Well, we went to that appointment and nothing was really said during my ultrasound. I had the checkup with my doctor directly after, and she said that the ultrasound tech that did my scan saw something or didn't see something that was supposed to be on the ultrasound to do with my baby's heart, and that just as a precaution they wanted to send me to a specialist 80 miles away for them to just do an ultrasound to check on it. She didn't say anything negative. She didn't make me worried. I was just thinking this was completely normal and they're just doing what they feel they should. A few days later, it was September 10th, 2018, and we were not expecting the results we got. But we found out that my baby had a few heart defects that would require open heart surgery. Which was very traumatic for me. Me and my husband were not expecting that. But can I just say that we have an awesome team, and I love all the doctors that have seen us since then. I had so many ultrasounds and NSTs and doctor appointments, and there's so many. But that means that they're thorough and they really cared, and that was very important to me. Okay, so fast forward to the last month of my pregnancy. I had been seeing specialists for a while. I had stopped going to my doctor in my hometown, and I was going specifically 80 miles away every week or every other week to have appointments. So because I was planning on delivering at this hospital that had the NICU and the CHSU units in them, we decided to schedule an induction for me. I had a scheduled induction with my firstborn, but he was a few days late after his due date, and I was just ready to get him out. This time I kind of was as well. I wanted to meet my baby boy, plus I was in a lot of pain. Any woman that has been pregnant knows the last few weeks are the worst. So we scheduled my induction day for the day I would turn 39 weeks pregnant, and baby boy was to be delivered on that day. So now let's get to that day. Okay, that day was November 19th. I went in to be induced. They actually weren't going to induce me until the 20th, which was the day I was to deliver. But on November 19th, they were going to let me come in and start me on Cervidil, is what I was told, because I was already dilated, I think to a 2, and they were just going to help progress that. Well, once we got there and we got checked in, they, I think, started me an IV and all that. I haven't written everything down, but you know, the normal stuff when you get checked into the hospital. They weren't treating me much different than any normal delivery. But I got checked out by a doctor, and she was very happy with how my body was already naturally progressed, and she decided not to start me on the Cervidil and just let me rest that night, and they would start me on Pitocin in the morning. And so we were like, okay. So I just still didn't sleep very much that night. I think it was just, you know, all the anxiety and adrenaline. But so on the 20th, we woke up, I think like 4 or 5 in the morning. Me and my husband were up and we're like, let's get this baby out. They had started me on Pitocin, and I was already having contractions pretty, you know, all night long. And they were pretty frequent. They had monitors hooked up to me the whole time. And they started me on Pitocin, and I would say it was around maybe noon time. I was like, I was wanting to do this birth without an epidural, just because I had a not so good experience with my firstborn, and but I wasn't strong enough. I'm just gonna say it. I was in a lot of pain. I had back labors, and I do not do well with back pain at all, and I didn't want me being under that stress to stress the baby out. And so I decided before they got horrible to just go ahead and get an epidural, and they gave me one, and I thought I was gonna be good. They also gave me some of these, I didn't write the name down, it was some kind of pain med, but it did not work to relieve my pain even a bit, and it made me feel like I was drunk. Like the room was spinning, and I was still in pain, and I couldn't even hold my head up. My husband was laughing his head off, but thank goodness it wore off pretty fast. Like it wore off in like an hour and a half, I would say. And I would say it didn't help this situation at all. It kind of made it worse because I was still feeling the pain, but I just felt like I was feeling it, and then I was like super loopy. So the doctor came in and broke my water when I was 4 centimeters dilated, which was, I think they had given me the epidural before they broke my water this time. My dad came, and he was staying with us, just visiting. And we were told, you know, to expect the baby around the night shift after around 7 o'clock at night. My dad wanted to be there to take pictures and stuff. And so he needed to go run an errand. So I told him to go because I wasn't expecting a baby that's to come anytime soon. And my husband was taking a nap, and I was trying to take a nap. All the lights were out. I had my epidural, my water was broke. I was told to just rest, and so I was trying to, and I started to feel a lot of pressure down below. So I called with a little hospital phone, and I was like, I feel a lot of pressure. I kind of feel like this baby's gonna come out. And they laughed at me and like, oh no, I'll be in just a minute. So she came in and checked, and she's like, well, yeah, you are ready. You are at a 10. And she's like, well, let's do a few practice pushes because I just checked before I come in here, and your doctor is in a C-section right now. And I was like, okay. So I did a few practice pushes with her. My husband is still in the chair next to me, asleep. And I did one practice push, and I was like, are you ready to catch this baby? And she just laughed, and I was like, no, like, I'm like not pushing as good as I could push because this baby's gonna come. And she goes, well, do one more push. She said, give me a good push. And I did, and she goes, okay, yes. She goes, don't do that again. She says, I'm gonna go see if the doctor can come or if I can find another doctor. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so she left the room, and so I'm grabbing whatever I can reach to throw at my husband because he's a very deep sleeper, and he was not waking up with me calling him. Woke him up as the doctor was coming in the room, and I had never met this doctor before. And he was like, you ready to have this baby? And I'm like, yeah. They got it all set up, and I was not expecting the baby to come as fast as he did, but I had those 2 practice pushes with the nurse, and then once the doctor was in, 3 pushes, and baby was out. And I remember on that 3rd push, he was pressing down on my stomach, and I was holding my breath, pushing so hard. And I remember them saying, you know, calling my name. They said, "Look," and I was like, "What?" You know, I'm like, I'm busy. I was like, "What? Am I doing something wrong?" And he was out, and I was still pushing. And he was purple, but he looked, you know, all slimy and whatnot, and like they do when they're born. And they laid him up on my chest, which I was not expecting. I still had my hospital gown on and stuff, and I remember I laid my hands on him, and he was so warm and slimy. And of course I'm crying, and my husband is all tearing up and stuff, and I think he's taking pictures as well. And then they took him away from me, and I told my husband to go be with him. They were checking him out, and they weighed him and measured him. They had measured him at 20 inches, but we found out later on that was a mismeasurement. He was actually 18 and a half inches born, 6 pounds, 15 ounces, and it was at 3:27 p.m. I didn't tear at all, so no stitches. I felt great. I just felt very emotional, and I felt empty, like my entire stomach was gone. I felt empty. And of course, you know, they have to get all the afterbirth and the placenta out of you. And we also were able to store some cord blood tissue and cord blood, as well as some of my blood as well. And that's still stored, and we have that available for us if we need it for future surgeries and stuff. And so they had to collect all of that and get me cleaned up, and my husband left when they took him away, and I was just sitting there chatting with the doctor and the few nurses that were in the room with me. And then they left. My husband came back shortly after that. I was already hooked up to my breast pump, trying to express as much colostrum as I could for my husband to take to the NICU for Sullivan. They took me out of my delivery room, and they were going to take me by my postpartum recovery room, and they did that, and then they took me to the NICU. So when I got to see him in the NICU, I was very nervous, but we got there, and he was hooked up to a pulse ox monitor and the other little monitors for his breathing and all that. But he didn't have a breathing tube, and he was under a light at first, but not because of jaundice for anything. It's just one of the NICU spaces. And you know, he had the little clear stuff on his eyes. And he just looked so peaceful, and I got to hold him. I was very nervous, I was very shaky, so I didn't hold him long, and I had them take him from me. I was very tired, and we went back to my room to rest the rest of the night. I did every 3 hours, though, pump and take milk to him. He was in a completely different part of the hospital, so I had to take elevators and walk down hallways to be able to get to him, but it all went pretty well. Even though he was 6 pounds, 15 ounces, he did lose a little bit of weight. They do usually right after birth, and he was so small compared to my first son. And he was wearing preemie diapers and preemie clothes. Newborn clothes just swallowed him. But a few days before I delivered, we found out that his kidneys were one of his kidneys was dilated, and they didn't know why, but they said it could resolve itself after he was born. Well, they rechecked that, as well as before they discharge your baby, they do hearing screens and all that. He had failed one of his hearing screens, but they retested him and then he passed. Both of his kidneys were dilated and they didn't know why. So while we were there, he had to go through a VCUG procedure, which, and I hope I tell you this right, it was the first thing I see my baby go through, really, and so I did not like it at all. They had to insert a catheter and then this dye up into his bladder and then make him pee and then watch where the dye went. They were wondering if he was having reflux and that was making his kidneys dilated. But everything was fine there, so we didn't get really an answer that time. He was discharged because he was doing so well, and we got to bring him home on the 27th. The day of his discharge, he had a Synergist shot. He was doing really well. We had a home health care team come out to the house and deliver an oxygen tank and all the tubing and setup for that in case we needed that, as well as a pulse ox machine, which I'm really grateful for. And that way I can monitor his oxygen levels here at the house and report that back to his cardiologist and all that. And every other week he would have an appointment with his cardiologist back in the town we delivered in. And he was doing really well. He was gaining weight. Let me see my notes here. By the time he was 1 month, which was December 20th, he was out of the preemie sizes and into newborn size clothes and newborn size diapers. He was 8 pounds, 14 ounces, and 20 inches long. And that's basically his first month. So yeah, he was doing really well. We still didn't have any answers with his kidneys, and he hadn't had his second Synergist shot yet. But that was his first month.